Are you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via live stream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Leadership Live at 8:05. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier, and excited to hang out with you once again on Tuesday night. As you know, at the end of the day, your business can only go as far as you're prepared to take it. So it's very important for you to continually learn and develop your leadership skills. And that's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. So always appreciate you tuning in. Definitely appreciate your comments, your questions. Feel free to reach out, and let's make this a conversation. We've got a great guest tonight, and really love our topic. We're going to talk about business basics that you can't afford to ignore. As a business owner, there's so many things that you need to know that you can't possibly know them all. But there's some things that will hurt you more than others, and some basic things that you may not know about, but you need to know about. So we're going to share and discuss some of those things today, and hopefully you'll get a lot of good things out of it. Talking to my guest, Seth Kamens, and we've chatted a little bit about this, and he's really got some good insights to share. We both have a financial management perspective, but not just financial management. That's the backbone of your business, but to really understand, if you have to really understand that, to really understand how your business works. So look forward to the conversation tonight. So let me bring Seth on. Hey, Seth, how you doing?
Hey, Andrew, how you doing? Sorry about that.
No problem. Thanks for joining. So
thanks for inviting us.
Okay. Excellent. So definitely looking forward to chatting with you about the topic. But, before we get started, if you could take a few minutes to sort of talk a little bit about your journey. How did you get to where you are? And then from there, we'll dig into the topic. Fair enough?
Sounds great. I would love to say that this was the plan 20, 25, 30 years ago. It wasn't even close. After college, this was probably plan C, D, E, something along those lines. I graduated from college, went to grad school down in Washington, D.C. My goal was to be on Capitol Hill. I has a political background. That was kind of where I thought I would lead to, where I thought I would go. Determined that long term, that didn't make a lot of sense. Ended up moving back into the New Jersey area around 25, 26 years old. I grew up in Wayne, about 20 minutes, 30 minutes west of the city. And I ended up coming out in a time where there was a depression. There was no real jobs, and with an MBA and not phenomenal experience, there wasn't much out there. And my father, who is a trust and estates attorney and really sharp, pragmatic guy, to say the least, suggested I go back and take some classes to sit for the CPA. I said, I hated accounting classes. Why would I want to do this? And what his thought was that I could utilize excuse me, I could utilize if I could pass the CPA and go in a variety of directions with my career. I ended up, went back, got enough credits to sit for the exam. I worked at a variety of companies, at Morgan Stanley, at Merrill Lynch. I worked at Deloitte. I worked at J.H. Cohen. After J.H. Cohen, I took some time to study for the CPA exam because working the hours I was working, I found it impossible to put in the time to be able to complete it. I ended up, ironically, getting sick for a year. And during that period, I ended up passing the exam. By this point, I realized that I was never going to move up working for people. My personality wasn't suited for it. What my skill set was to be more of a client relationship person. So I worked for a smaller firm for about 2 years. And in my early 30s, I took the shot and went off on my own. I didn't buy a practice. I didn't have a business. I emailed every single person I knew on Facebook and LinkedIn personally. It took me a month. Got about 8 clients out of it. And for about 2 or 3 years, I struggled, kind of maneuvered my way enough to survive. And I had the thing that I had, which was really helpful. I had emotional support from my parents, and some pragmatic business help from my father. I engaged with someone who I knew growing up who was interested in buying a small practice. And our relationship to this day, he's my 50-50 partner, has been phenomenal. He is an incredible technician, would have been a partner at just about any other firm, and ended up also along the way, started dating someone who was running her own business, who is now my wife. We took over a small practice in 2016, which allowed him to come over full time. And we've built it from there. At that point, we had about 200 or 300 clients, give or take. 9 years later, we're about 2,500. We have 22, 23 employees, and we're continuing to expand in much larger than I had ever anticipated. And the way that the business has been run, and the way where it continues to go, there's so many things that we can do with it, and so many things we try and assist our clients with, that we laughed at it. My partner anticipated the growth. I never did, but it just kind of feels like that's the direction where we're going to continue to go.
Excellent. So, I mean, definitely, everybody's journey is different, but I'd say most people's journey, you don't end up where you thought you were.
No,
but
you never, the person you are at 25 or 30 versus the person you are at 40 or 45 is completely different people. So I didn't expect it, but it's been a fantastic journey.
Yeah, no, I would say the same. So, and you've sort of seen a lot of different sides of business with your own business and also with other people's businesses. So, so I think that's you've got a lot to pull from. But before we jump in, we do the show through the Small Business Pro University. And it's one of our brain trust initiatives. And I got a short video about the university, so everybody knows sort of what we do and who we are. Many small businesses experience low or no revenue growth, and the owners are not making enough money. I founded Small Business Pro University to help you break that cycle by empowering you with greater knowledge and enhanced skills to lead your organization more effectively. Over the past 15 years, I've collaborated with organizations like the Small Business Development Center, Rising Tide Capital, Empower the Village, NJMEP, Rutgers University, and SCORE to work one-on-one with over 1,000 business owners and teach tens of thousands of people about business. My experience includes serving as a naval officer, managing businesses, graduating from MIT, earning an MBA from NYU, and achieving the CFA designation, which has prepared me to accomplish my mission of helping 1,000,008 business owners to sell more, maximize profit, and finance growth by 2028. My vision is to create the ultimate business ecosystem for entrepreneurs. Small Business Pro University empowers entrepreneurs like you to run their businesses more professionally and create sustainable enterprises. We employ my proven proprietary Masterpreneur Playbook framework to guide your journey along the Masterpreneur path and facilitate your Masterpreneur evolution to work on your business and scale faster and easier. Small Business Pro University provides access to valuable resources, partnerships, and relationships that will help you to sell more, maximize profit, and finance growth. Our Masterpreneur initiatives include the Small Business Pro Network, 100+ expert-led multimedia courses, intensive training workshops, Spanish language training, Leadership Live at 8:05 live stream and podcast, in-person Power Breakfast events, and advisory coaching, consulting, and training services. All right, welcome back to Leadership Live at 8:05. I'm here with Seth Kamens, and we're talking small business. Our topic tonight is business basics you can't afford to ignore. I really like this topic, and we kind of came up with it when we were chatting, just about commonalities that we see working with different business owners, and just certain things that they tend to not know and get tripped up by. So, what would you say the number one thing that you see as something that every small business owner needs to know, but many times they don't?
I think one of the biggest issues you have is in the beginning is your entity selection. There's two ways to look at revenue, I think, in the way I guess as an accountant I look at it is A, you grow revenue, or B, you lower costs. And what happens is everyone starts off, gets these ideas, and they speak with other people who have built businesses, and one business has nothing to do with another. If you start off as an LLC versus an S Corp versus a C Corp, the tax consequences based upon the state that you're in and the situation that you're in, the revenue that's being generated, can be incredibly significant. And the way that that's from the outset. It's keeping basic books. I tell people the first year that you're running a business, go one night a month while you're watching a football game or watching a movie. Get an idea on where your books are. Put it into QuickBooks. Put it into Excel. Things like very basic ideas. Entity selection, making sure you have an idea where your numbers lie. Because so many people start off with, my revenue is X, my revenue is Y, whatever it is, and I'm up 40%. But they're not really correlating it with the costs that are going with it. And if you have costs that are jumping just as high, then the revenue generation often doesn't matter. So it's making sure that you're running it as a business. It's making sure that you have the right entity. And it's making sure. Those are the two basic things we start with. And then from there, you kind of take further steps into retirement plan, are you handling your taxes in the correct way? Our job more and more is really not to do returns. We do them because it's part of the deal, but it's really to advise people. Because doing a tax return is typically relatively commoditized. So it's how can we, similar to what you're saying, how can we help you? Where is the advice? Not that I can save you $1 million, but can I give you some ideas that'll save you a couple grand here, a couple grand there, or maybe it's not good for 2025, or maybe it's good for 2026. And you throw these things out to people, and people may know their business, but they don't no one really studies this part of the business. So what happens a lot of times is they are talking to people who are not in the same situation, or they're Googling something. And really what happens is they're getting bad advice. What I try and explain to people is when you're starting a business, you need to have a 3 or 4 person set of people you can throw stuff off of. Accountant, lawyer, some kind of finance person, whatever it is. I don't care if it's an financial advisor, whatever that is, and someone who's in your industry who you don't find to be direct competition. And these are people who will say no to you and tell you you're doing things wrong. If you have that, that's kind of where we start, like those 3 or 4 points, because so many people, it's almost like you're a yes person, or they want people to be yes people. And that's not what you need when you're starting a business. You need to know when you're doing things wrong. You need to know when you're getting bad advice. And sorry, I apologize if I jumped in a couple different ways, but that's where we start with people, is these 3 or 4 main things.
Okay, no, I think that, I look at a lot of things similarly. You talked about the entity, and that is kind of confusing for a lot of people. Could you maybe just go into a little more depth,
Sure.
describing what the entities are and what are the major differences between them?
Of course. So there's 3 main entities. There's an LLC, an S Corp, and a C Corp. Nobody ever starts with a C Corp unless you're trying to raise capital. Google is a C Corp. Microsoft is a C Corp. Unless you're raising equity from private equity, from friends and family, things along those lines, nobody ever does that kind of business for 2 reasons. Primarily, you're taxed twice. If there's net income at the end, you're taxed at the entity level. And the only way that you can take money out is by either a W-2 or via dividend. So hence double taxation. They're the most complicated entity to deal with. So we probably manage 600 or 700 businesses would be my best guess. I would say less than 5% are C Corps. And every single one of them, except for one, are people who are raising capital. There's no other reason to do it. So if you were running a small business, the only 2 logical positions to take are logical selections are an LLC or an S Corp. An LLC is what's called a limited liability company. And what that is, it's not a massive tax savings, but it's more of a limitation in case you get sued. It's more for a legal issue, for legal protection. And the way it works is incredibly simple. Revenue in, expenses out, you get taxed on whatever the net is. If you're a single member LLC, it's just on your personal return. If you have more than one member, there's an entity, but typically there's no entity tax. That's on a very high level how it works. There's also what's called an S Corp. An S Corp is kind of a little bit of an in-between, where you, as an owner, would receive a W-2 and you receive what's called a K-1, which flows to your personal return. Under most circumstances, it's better protection. It's better protection in an LLC, and it's usually more of a tax savings for reasons that are beyond the scope of this conversation. The one exception is if you're in New York City. There's an specific S Corp. New York City doesn't recognize S Corp, so there's an additional 9% tax. This is where I talk about where people get bad advice, is when we see a lot of New York City companies who are S Corps, where there's no savings to it. And there's moving parts contingent on what your business is. But typically, I'd say 95, 96% of our businesses are LLCs or S Corps.
Okay. No, that's great perspective. I like how you shared that. So now, even if you have, the LLC or S Corp, and at some point you wanted to change, basically, we got the question, when should you consider switching? a legal structure, and is that viable, and how might you do that?
It's viable. It's not always, you do it, typically people do it once. It a lot of times depends on what your end goal is. So you can't start as an S corp. It's not, an S corp is a tax status. You can be an LLC that converts to an S corp. You can be a C corp that converts to an S corp. Conversion is typically not difficult. Once you do it, it's very difficult to convert back. I think there's a 5-year hold. So typically when you're doing it, you kind of start with LLC. And if you're going to convert, you may convert to an S corp. And a lot of times you'll do that based upon where your income is. The main reason for an S corp, without going into grand detail, is there can be a significant savings on Social Security and Medicare, self-employment tax. When you're an LLC, one of the things nobody prepares you for is, yes, if you were a W-2 employee, you knew that you paid income tax. What you didn't know is you also, most of the time, you paid Social Security and you paid Medicare as the employee. So as the employer. When you're an LLC, you pay both as the employer and the employee. It ends up being 13%. Now there's a deduction that goes against it, but for the most part, it's not a tax that's anticipated by anyone who's starting a business. And what happens is once you get behind that 8 ball of not being able to pay because of the Social Security, it kind of rolls forward and becomes a problem. When you're an S corp, you take a W-2, and then whatever residual income that's left over, you don't pay Social Security and Medicare on. So if you're netting 150, 200 grand for you personally, then it's worth it. If you're netting more than that, it's worth it. If you're smaller than that, then typically we don't usually encourage it, because the extra fees, including ours, and the things that go with it, make it more aggravation than it's worth for de minimis savings.
No, that's a great point. I mean, a lot of times, when businesses are starting out, they seem like they may be more concerned about how much they're paying in taxes than how much money they're actually making, or they're making enough money to really have anything that can be done to help them on the taxes. So, you said a little bit about, how much income you should be taking home as an indication of, where it is. Sort of look at financial management as a continuum. Whereas, at the beginning, you don't need as much. And then the further along you are, you need more support. And, how would you break it up? So, maybe, if you're under 100 grand in sales, what type of support would you say? If you're between 100 and a million, what type of support might you need? And then over $1 million?
Well, sorry, I'm not sure what you're asking in regards to this.
In terms of, like, do you need, when do you need a CPA? When do you need an accountant? Okay. When do you need a bookkeeper? When do you need a CFO? Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay. So sorry about that.
Yeah.
So when you're making under 100 grand, to be perfectly honest, you should be doing everything yourself. You don't know, you're not going to pay us $5 grand to do your bookkeeping if you're grossing $80,000 a year, or you shouldn't be. And literally, if you're at that point, which is where my first 3 years were, I would be going out and trying to meet clients and I used to go to what are called incubators for startups. And I used to laugh. It was myself, and it was a Price Waterhouse, or myself and Deloitte. And they would look at me like I was crazy. And my feeling was, well, you can get me, or you can get a staff 1 guy at Deloitte. I think you're better off with me. For the same price point, you're probably better off with me. But the first 2 to 3 years, it's got to be all you. You can't afford to do anything along those lines. You need a CPA, most likely, to file the tax return, and to have someone who you can bounce questions off of. But the value add really is as you grow. when you're at 250, you're at 500, and then you're hiring someone to do your bookkeeping so you can work more on business development or you work more on the operational side. And you should be having meetings with your CPA probably 2 to 4 times a year. This is what's going on. This is where we are. Why is this doing well versus where it was a year ago? I brought up very briefly, are you in the right retirement plan? Because if you're talking 100,000 to $1 million. If you're making $100,000, you're not putting anything away into a retirement plan, maybe a couple grand into a traditional IRA. But if you're grossing 600, 800, taking home 300, 350, again, I'm just making up numbers here. There are plans you can put away 50, 60, 100, $200,000 a year. And what the most dangerous thing is what you don't know. I tell clients, I don't claim to memorize a treasury guidance. You can go to Ernst & Young for that. But I know how common sense works with these things. And a lot of people in this area either don't have it or don't want to, because people avoid this like the plague. They think this is the word. And look, nobody likes to pay taxes. I don't like to pay them either. But I had a client discussion this afternoon. His wife runs a company, does 1.4. And he's a CFO of a private equity company. And we're talking, and he said, why? I'm like, why are you not in a pension plan for your wife? You can put away $250,000 a year. I'm not the person to run it. I'm not a TP, what's called a third-party administrator. I'm not that person. But I can tell you the right way to go with it. And most CPAs should. As I said, our job is to advise. The tax return, you have a bookkeeper, or if we're doing the bookkeeping, the books are going to be 95% right, unless you're dealing with really bad people at it. So the return is the end result. It's where do we get you? Where do we help you here? If you're at 1 to 10 million, well, just kind of going back to what your numbers are. If that's kind of where typically our businesses lie. Our biggest is, we have ones that are much higher. We have a lot of them that are much lower, but typically the kind of 2 to 6, 2 to 8 million, where we're having quarterly meetings. We're talking about, making certain payments, doing things at this time of year. Are you doing what's called the PTAC, which is a pass-through entity tax, which allows you to pay your state tax for the business through the business and get a federal deduction? It was a workaround from Trump's tax plan in 2016 that probably about 20 to 25 states do. And if you're netting $1 million, if you're doing 2 or 3 million and you're netting, $1 million a year, if you're in New Jersey, your tax is 80, 90 grand. It's a $90,000 deduction. It's saving you 40,000. I had this exact discussion about 2 months ago with a company doing about 15, 16 million. They just took it over from their parents. They knew none of this. They didn't know anything about the pension plan. They didn't know. This is how you grow. This is where you have your savings. This is where CPAs are an asset to you, not just, hey, you owe 100 grand in tax, or you owe 20 grand in tax, or whatever it is. If that's what they're doing, if that's all they're doing, and sometimes that's all we can do. But if you are running a business and you are not, you're not getting advice, and then the job is really, there's no value add, and you're not being it's commoditized. And I'm not saying my firm, I'm just saying in general. Our job is to advise. And this is the things you talk about: entity selection, you talk about retirement, you talk about making sure bookkeeping, you're making sure that your margins year upon year are relatively similar or growing. Because if not, as your CPA, I want to know why. Because that's where people don't think about this stuff. And that's where firms like ours, or, the hundreds of other firms that are perfectly good, that's where our expertise is. That's where we bring our value add. And if you're not getting that, well, then pretty much you're not utilizing the people who should be helping you, is the best way to put it.
Okay. Definitely. And most people aren't. I find a lot of times they don't ask. And so, first step is, that they understand that they could and should be asking for that and expecting that. So, excellent. So, you talked a little bit about bookkeeping. We've got a question about bookkeeping, so I figured I may as well pull this up for us.
Sure.
What tools do you recommend for bookkeeping? And
What? Sorry, what?
What tools do you recommend for bookkeeping? And that may be something that changes based on your size as well. So what would you recommend?
It does. I typically, there's a running conversation within our firm about this. 95% of our clients are on QuickBooks Online. Now, as you get bigger and contingent on what your industry is, there are certain times where it's not, there may be better things out there, a peach tree or whatever it is. There's certain that are industry specific. But for general, and especially if you're starting, it is the simplest. You have a business bank account. You should have one credit card that you only use for business. Keep it simple. The first year, 2 years, just keep it simple. And literally you load it in. It runs $50 a month, give or take. And typically most accountants can get you half price on that. And it will literally generate your profit loss and your balance sheet for you. Now you have to go in and make certain classifications and things along those lines. And as it gets more sophisticated, excuse me, as your business grows and and the work becomes a lot more sophisticated, you're not going to be doing that. Then you'll be going more industry specific. But I mean, our biggest client, I think, is 80, 90 million. We still actually use QuickBooks. We use QuickBooks Desktop for them. Because the partner who runs that aspect just doesn't like online. But for most of us, if I want to be going through something with a client, I want to go online with them so I can see it and I can talk it out. That to me, it makes the most sense. But other people use a variety of things. There's Wave, there's Bench, there's a bunch of other ones, Xero, there's a bunch of them. For the most part, they're all the same. It's really, I like the simple. QuickBooks Online is simple, and for me, but I like the way I like to do these kind of things is I think of things in very simple terms. So simplicity is better for me, and QuickBooks Online, for the most part, does 90% of the job pretty well. So that's why that's what I typically recommend, because it's easiest for people to understand.
Okay, all right, no, great. I pretty much use QuickBooks Online with everybody I work with right now. It just makes it easy to work with, jump online with them, help them do whatever needs to be done. So another basic question early on, what's your take on automating financial systems early on? And also, what does that mean? That could.
That's by automating finance. Are you talking about more of almost like COO? Are you talking about work? Are you talking about cash flow?
I'm not sure. That's why I was wondering.
Yeah, I kind of need a little bit more clarification. If you look, automating processes is great if you can do it. The running joke within our firm is my partner. I consider myself an entrepreneur who happens to be a CPA. My partner is a pure accountant, which is why it's a great fit. He is incredibly systems process driven. I have had to cater, as we've gotten bigger, to the processes. So I think as you grow, it becomes increasingly important, because you can't do things fly by night. If you have 50 clients, you can do things. Again, I'm just using my company as an example.
Right.
Prior to merging and buying all these things, I could do it with 80 clients, 100 clients. I could do things without process, without automation. Now we have 2,000, whatever the number is, 2,000 clients, whatever it is. We need streamlined. we have no choice. So there's things we use AI for. There's things that we use other scan software for. Everything is processed. Sometimes it drives me up a wall because my mind doesn't work that way.
Right.
But one of the things about running a business is it's not always about you. It's about what works best for everybody. And that's where we've had to go.
Definitely. And early on, a lot of times in business, you don't even have a proven process or system. So,
No.
You don't have anything to automate yet until you've done it several times.
Why would you want to spend all the money on automation when you're literally trying to survive? As you grow, the necessity comes. But starting out, I'm not unless you have a massive capital inflow where there's an expectation that you can do this because someone gave you $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, whatever the number, whatever seed money came in, and your industry is mandated to do it. That's one thing. But most small businesses aren't. Most small businesses are not tech startups, are not, apps. I mean, for every two, I can tell you for every app, I think we've had 20 or 30 app companies over the years. Not one of them has survived. I'd like to think it's not because of us, but there is something that we see these commercials more and more about these businesses that just run and run that aren't the newest or the coolest there's something to be said for gradual. We've grown. I think we've been in existence 14 years, and none of this is pat myself on the shoulder. This is just, I use my firm as an example because I know it the best. Everything is gradual. And as we've gotten bigger and incrementally, we've grown every year in 14 years, we've had to implement some automation. We have this, we have this, we have this, we have this. And it's the only way eventually to get to certain levels that you want to get to. But I wouldn't advise starting it early unless there's a mandatory reason because of whatever the business is.
Yep. No, definitely. So, we've covered, a lot on the financial management side. What else, or what's a good second thing that's a basic business area that people should know about and can't afford to ignore? What else is key that you see?
I think it's something that's actually extremely easy, but people sometimes make it harder than it needs to. Don't run a business in an industry you don't know. If you are the main person. My wife is a perfect example. Before we were dating, she had an idea for a company, and it was a good idea. And it was a very good idea. And she took 6 to 9 months while she was working, and I introduced her to all of my startup connections, and she talked with all of them, and she realized it was the right idea. She wasn't the person to run it. Then 2 years later, she started her firm, and I kind of questioned her. We weren't dating at that point, but I questioned her why, you didn't start the first one. She goes, because I know this business. I can build this business. And she has, and she's a freaking superstar. And because she knows how to run it. I have seen so many people who try to run businesses that they're not built for, that they don't have an expertise in. They have an idea. And you can't run a business is not a hobby. People run these things like they're hobbies. And if you want it to be a hobby, I've hosted a sports radio show for 13 years. It is my favorite thing in the world. It is a hobby. I don't make money on it. Hoped I would at one point, never did. And you need to understand the industry you're in. You need to understand the barriers that are there. You need to have a feel of where your company can go. And I really think you also need an endpoint. There are businesses we've had where we've told the partners, the owners, you should close. You've been running this for 5 years. 6 years, 4 years, one of them 11 years. It's not happening. And for whatever reason, and they're just stubborn. They keep going and keep going. And to me, it doesn't. When I started this firm, I gave myself 4 years. That was my threshold. If I wasn't making any kind of living in 4 years, I had my CPA, I had an MBA, I would figure another path. And the 4th year is when things really started to click. But I also, at that point, understood what I needed to do. And I had the background to do it. Got lucky, we've done fine. But so many people go into these businesses because they're sick of working for all these other companies. They're sick of working for IBM or Microsoft or Google or whatever it is. And they're not equipped to run the businesses they're trying to start. And that is dangerous. Look, because if you're borrowing money to do it, then we have 1 or 2 clients where it is a horror show. And that is the advice I was always given, was know when there is a limitation, know when there is a stopping point, and know when there's time to move on. And as an advisor to people, if I don't tell them that, then I'm not doing them a service. I'm not doing them a service. And my job is to help my clients, even if it doesn't overly help me.
Okay. No, I think what you said is hugely important, because, definitely I work with people on financing and other stuff. And, the likelihood of success goes way down if you don't have any industry knowledge, because there's just so many little nuances that you're going to miss that, are going to come back and bite you. So definitely taking the time to really evaluate and maybe talk to other people about you, but you can always get a job in the industry that you want to be in. Take a job, even if it's for 3 months. The amount of stuff that you will learn in those 3 months that they're paying you to learn will be immeasurable in your business, and you might not learn what you learned in those 3 months in 2 years trying to do it yourself.
I have a funny, if I may. When I started this, I had 25 clients, and I had to do evaluation of a company, and I ended up working with a guy. I interned for him, for lack of a better term, and he still jokes to me that he should have paid me. I should have paid him for what I learned from that. And it's true. I learned a great deal. I gave him 1/3 of my income, which was nothing, in return for using his tax program. But I learned. And I learned what I was good at, and I learned what I wasn't good at within this accounting realm. And there are things I am really not good at. And there are things that I am probably better than most at. Mm-hmm. And I surround myself with people who compliment me in that regard. And that's why the business has grown.
Definitely. So we've got 2 key things. What would you say the third thing is that you run into that, many times business owners are behind the 8 ball on?
Give me a second.
Okay.
I think the other thing, and we talked about it briefly, is expedited. When you have expedited growth, it is very difficult to figure out what to do with it, for lack of a better term. It's one thing if you go from 100,000 to 150 to 250 you have gradual 5, 10, 15%. Well, we've had clients that went from $1 million to $8 million in a year. And then and a lot of times it's a 1-year fluke, mm-hmm. or it's one client, one patient, one whatever it is. The most dangerous thing you can ever have is have a business where, again, and talking more of a service business is where one customer is a significant percentage of your income. Because then everything you do is mandated towards that client. And if that client is that big, then they can always leave. And that was our again, I just use us as an example. That was our biggest fear when we started, is we took over a very small practice where one client was 25% of the firm. Ironically, they went bankrupt last week. But that was nine. But you know what? Our hope was we bought that practice. We hoped they would stay with us for 3. They stayed with us until literally they went bankrupt last week. Okay. And it went from 25% to less than 1%. And our goal all along was, we never want a client where them leaving could materially impact our life. Mm-hmm. And it took a while to get there, but we don't. We have, I think, one client that's more than 5%.
Okay.
And that, to me, is because if you are only catering to one person, one company, number one, you're two things. Number one, you don't know what else is going to be out there, because all you're going to really be worrying about is that one client. And number two, just because you're catering to one, you may not be getting better at what you're doing. One of the other things, and I probably should have brought this up, is always be learning about how you can grow it, whether it's better knowledge within your industry or things that expand outside of it, but correlate. We're building out a certain business within our business, which I'm building out right now. That is where I want to go with the business. I have CPAs who are learning more and more, being more and more technical. It's always learning. And that was something I learned from my father. Father very early on. Always keep learning. And you may not be the most technical, but you damn well better be the best in service in dealing with clients and dealing with people. So whenever I talk to any prospect, client, I'm blunt, as you may be able to tell. And I said, this is how I work. This is what I do. This is how I do things. I don't wear suits. I occasionally curse. But if you email me, I will email you back. I will call you back. I want you to feel comfortable to reach out to me. And that's something in my industry people don't do.
Okay.
And because people are afraid you're going to get $100 bill or whatever it is. And I'd rather reach out than help. So anyway, the idea is get better at things. Keep working on whatever your industry is. Learn it. And the client service is everything. Because at the end of the day, you don't like me. We have a guy I do business with. He's #1 in Google reviews in New York City for web design. He's a friend of mine. He's a pain in the ass. And I've told him, I go, I don't care if you're #1. I can go to #2 or #3, and their job is probably going to be just as good. And if I like dealing with them, I'm going to deal with them. And in service business, it's all about your comfortability and how you deal with people. And so anyway, I went off topic a little, but I find that to be incredibly important. And nobody looks at page 190 on a tax return. Well, I have 2 or 3 clients who do, but most people don't look at page 190 on a tax. They know if you call them back. They know if you answer their questions. They know if you're making an effort. When I hire people, all I care about is work ethic. That's really it. Show me you give a damn.
Okay.
I'll teach you the rest.
Excellent. So I mean, it's a great point you shared about, growth and managing it. I think that, a lot of times, growth is unexpected. But if you don't prepare your business and structure it right, it's easy to go out of business. And a lot of times, the rule of thumb is like, if you double your revenue, everything in your business breaks. Unless you, so, you got to consistently be evolving and making improvements throughout the business and assess, building capacity before you need it. And so very important key piece as well. And that's one of the things we do through the Masterpreneur Playbook that I created, because it outlines the 5 key steps that every business needs to go through to go to scaling. So, definitely, we've covered a lot of good stuff. I'm just going to walk through the playbook because, it's important to understand if you're going to grow your business, sort of what it's going to take. One side of it is you got to run the Masterpreneur path. There's 5 steps going from startup to scaling that your business has to go through, and you have to lead your business through. But for you to be able to lead your business through those 5 steps, you're going to need to evolve as a leader. So each step, there's a different skill, there's a different structure that you have to put into place for you to be able to successfully move and evolve from one stage to the other in terms of your leadership of your organization. And, if you can't do that or you don't do that, you're going to get stuck because your business can only go as far as you're prepared to take it. So, yes.
I think there's one other point, and this is something that, and I apologize,
No.
but this is something that I found incredibly important when I started. The support you need, and I'm not talking financial support, I'm talking emotional support, because you're going to have nights. I used to take a baseball bat. The first year I was running, I had this old green, ugly couch, and I would take a baseball bat and I would just swing and belt the crap out of the couch. But I would call my girlfriend, my parents, and and they all believed that I could do that. This could be done. And then I found my business partner who's like, look, we can do that. You need support. And I'm not talking from a financial standpoint. It's not like people gave me millions of dollars to run this thing. You need a lot. It takes a lot. It takes chutzpah, whatever verbiage you want to use, to run a business. And there are times, especially in the beginning, where you are going to doubt yourself. If you don't have support from girlfriend, wife, friends, not really friends, but more girlfriend, wife, family, friends to a degree, it is really, really hard. And that I've been very lucky to have in spades.
Yep. No, definitely. That's critical because a lot of times people don't understand what it means to be an entrepreneur and may not support you in the way you need. When you're an entrepreneur, you have very high highs, you have some amazing days, but you have some very low lows and there could be some scary days. And if you don't have a way to manage through them or people who can help you and, get you the perspective to, continue on in the right way, it can be difficult. In my first book, Running Your Small Business Like a Pro, everybody's favorite chapter was chapter 6. It was called Can I Get My Old Job Back? Because I had one business owner, she's in the book. She's like, I quit my business like at least 100 times a day. Because everybody has thought that probably multiple times.
To be fair, I never ever wanted to go back to work at a firm that I worked at.
Right.
But I did wonder many, many times, what the hell am I doing in this profession? And there are times I still wonder that, but it's a little bit more mitigated now. But if you don't have doubts, then you're not. Then you're fooling yourself.
Yeah.
Most of our professions, fake it till you make it, doesn't really work. And certain things you can do it, but eventually you're going to be called out.
Definitely. So, So an hour goes really fast. We're bumping up on the hour. And before I let you go, I want to make sure that, if you can share the 3 key takeaways that people should take away from our conversation, because I think we talked about some extremely valuable issues and topics. that would be great. I'll give you a minute to sort of think through those, and I'm going to share a short video about the book that we just launched at our 5th anniversary, something the audience, you may want to check out. But here's a short video so you can learn about it, and then we'll come back talking small business with Seth. Hi, Andrew here, and I'm excited to announce the launch of our new book, 99 Proven Tips to Accelerate Your Masterpreneur Journey. 5 years, 33 incredible guests, hundreds of powerful business lessons, and now it's all in one place. Introducing 99 Proven Tips to Accelerate Your Masterpreneur Journey, a brand new book built from the insights, wisdom, and strategies shared by the guest experts of our podcast, Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Inside, you'll discover actionable tips on how to launch smarter.
So if you have an idea that you have researched and you know who your customer is, and you think that you've got the experience you need, now is a perfect time to start a business. But remember, start as a side hustle first.
Grow faster.
So sales is about problem solving, not about manipulating. You have to understand the math of your business, the sales math.
Lead more effectively.
You shouldn't expect someone to be you. You have to understand and create processes to basically train people on how to handle certain situations and basically set people on the right path, right? So they can become successful within your organization.
And scale your business with confidence.
Bet on yourself and not be afraid to take risks, and to know that you have within you the ability to accomplish your dreams and accomplish your goals.
Think like an entrepreneur. Now, I know there may be many entrepreneurs listening, but there may be some who aren't entrepreneurs. It's all well and good. I'm here to say entrepreneurship is not just something you do, it's a way that you think. And the characteristics of an entrepreneur's thinking are creativity, resourcefulness, courage, resilience, and passion.
This isn't theory, it's practical advice straight from entrepreneurs and thought leaders who have done it. 5 years of conversations, 33 voices of experience, and now 99 tips to accelerate your masterpreneur journey. Get your copy today. Pre-order now to reserve your signed copy. Click the button below or scan the QR code to order from www.sbprou.com/99-tips. All right, welcome back. Andrew Frazier here on Leadership Live, talking to Seth Kamens, and we're talking about business basics that you can't afford to ignore. We talked about some valuable insights that can be really helpful for business owners wherever they are in their masterpreneur journey. Seth, what are the 3 key things that people should take away from what we talked about?
Number one, have a circle of people who will tell you no. These are your advisors. We were talking about lawyer, accountant, financial person, someone in your industry who's not competition. People that you can bounce things off of. Number 2, client service trumps everything. People come to us or come to me, not because I know page 387 of the Treasury Code. They know that if they email, I'll email them back. They know if they call, I'll call them back. They know if I don't know the answer, I will find out, but I will tell them I don't know the answer, but I will find out. Also, and more importantly, I guess the final thing, and that kind of this goes, I guess, correlates with the service, is give a damn. Give a damn about what you're doing. Give a damn about learning about how you can build about your industry so you can keep building and keep growing. Because if not, you will get stagnant really, really quick.
Okay, no, definitely. Having people that say no and being willing to have people that would say no to you. You know, definitely it's not easy for everybody to be able to take that feedback, but it can save you a lot of time, money, and heartache if you get the right info. And I'm sure you've talked to a lot of business owners. You know, I tell people, you know, you need to get a job and come back in later, because, you know, depending on your situation, where you are, what you're trying to do, you know, you may be in a position where whatever you do, you're not going to be able to accomplish your goal. And you don't want to be stuck in that position longer than you have to.
There's always an end point. There's always a point where you just have to say, it's time. I gave it my best shot and I have to walk away.
Yep.
And it's a lot easier to do that and then live with it than not try it in the first place, or to keep going well beyond its saturation point, for lack of a better term.
Definitely. And customer service, you know, in my book, one of the things I would say is, you know, your most important job as a business owner is sales and marketing. And, you know, outside of when you're starting and you don't have any customers, when you have customers, it's a lot easier to keep one than to try and get another one. And if you keep happy ones, then they're going to bring you more customers. So that's what business is all about. So
that's how every good company builds. Is you've never, with our firm, there's no social media for the most part. There's no advertising. It's all word of mouth, and we've been able to do just fine doing it that way.
Mm-hmm. So, but you know, that being said, you know, if you weren't doing stuff better than others, especially on the customer service side, you wouldn't be able to do that.
They wouldn't recommend us.
Yeah.
You can find, I'm on Eisenhower Parkway. There's 84 accounting firms on my road. You know exactly where it is.
I know exactly where you are.
Find 80 other accounting firms there. We're building and growing quick. And I'd like to think that's the reason for it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Especially in your industry, because customer service is getting worse because there's so many mergers and people are growing.
Yeah.
So that's
a whole other hour of discussion.
True. And then finally, you know, care about what you're doing. You know, if you're doing your business right, your customers are really your friends, because, you know, you care about them, you care about their business, you know, they care about you, and you work together to help each other be more successful.
Right. We grow with you. If your company grows and we help facilitate that, everybody's happy.
Yep.
And that's the goal. That's the goal of business. To me, it's much easier to help people around you grow than to try and I always thought it would be much simpler starting this practice if there was help along those lines, as opposed to everything being a competition. Not everything is.
Right. So definitely. So, you know, this has been great, Seth. You know, definitely appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule, sharing your expertise. You know, before we close out, Seth's LinkedIn profile is in the chat. So definitely, you know, if you want to catch up with him, we also have his website in the chat. So if you want to learn more about him and his firm, you know, definitely that information's there as well. You could probably even invite him to connect, and he'd probably say yes.
Anyone is more than welcome to link in. The website's about 8 years old. We have to update it a little bit, but yeah, anyone wants to link in, anyone wants to talk, please feel free.
Okay, excellent. Anything you want to share before we close out, Seth?
No, I just want to thank you for the opportunity for coming on. This was a lot of fun.
Okay, great.
Hopefully a couple of people got something out of it.
Definitely. I'm confident in that, and you know, looking forward to you know, sharing it further. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close things out, but if you can hang on a minute, that would be great. So, you know, once again, had a great episode here with Seth tonight. Hopefully, you know, you've taken some of what we said and can utilize it to be more successful in what you're doing. Definitely feel free to like, share, and comment. We keep the recordings up, so if you only caught part of the show, you can go back and check it out. Or if you know someone who needs to listen to the show, feel free to share the links with them. And we'll also come out on your favorite podcast channel in about a month. So definitely had a great show. Looking forward to next week. Next week we got a little different topic. It's about, are you ready? We're going to be talking with Mildred Volsey, and she's a serial entrepreneur, has had many businesses, and really talking about what it takes to be ready to be able to be successful in your business. So really looking forward to talking to her as well. Hopefully you can join us here again on Tuesday night, every Tuesday night for over 5 years. And always remember, at the end of the day, the more that you know, the faster and more successfully your business is going to grow.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 805, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.